Alright, so now that you know how to do some inputting to your files, let's look at how you can actually change the output to make them a little bit prettier and cleaner to see. And that's using the display function. There's actually two main ways we're going to cover it. In this video, we're going to cover the display function. The display function is simply that. It's disp, and whatever we type in here is going to display into MATLAB. So for example, if I said display the data are, and if I said that, it just says the data are. Well, that's not really exciting, but let's show you how you can actually use this. So for example, let's take the data that we had from last week's homework, and that was thermodata, so thermoscores I think it was called. So let's do load thermoscores.dat. We have that, and we can say in that, if we wanted to display the data, we say thermal scores, and we get the long list of data. In that, the first column is student number, then test 1, test 2, test 3. But nobody knows that without knowing it inherently, and thermal scores is equal to at the beginning is kind of boring. So what we could do is actually we can do a two-step call, and I'm going to say display, and in this one I'm going to say we can actually, if we did display and the name of the variable thermal scores, one of the things you'll see happen is we no longer get the thermo equals at the top. That's great. We just clip that. That means now if we put another display line in front of this display line on top of each other, we'll actually be able to put column labels on this. So I'm going to do that within a script just for the sake of seeing that. And I'm going to create a new script here. Go display thermal scores, but now I'm going to create a new display, and this is probably the least satisfying part of it, but we have to now try to physically line up the name of the outputs so it overlaps with the names of the columns. So because it's going to explicitly put however many spaces it has in there and so forth in this. So for this first one we can say I'm going to guess it's going to need 2 spaces, and then I'll say student, and then I'll do 2 spaces test 1, 2 spaces test 2, and 2 spaces test 3. Let's see how this goes. End that, and we run this. So I'm just going to evaluate current selection, run over here, and it's not too terrible. It's a little bit off because you can see this label's over. It's not quite lined up, so we can go back and let's just delete this 2, evaluate current selection, student 1. Okay, that's probably about as good as it's going to get for this round. We should probably, if we really want to, delete that, and run, cancel, run section. And then that's probably about as good as it'll get. So you can do that to get a nice label on this table and see how this can work very nicely. Now, another option you can do is you can actually display multiple things at once, and it is on a single column. Let's say, for example, I wanted to have a variable called x, and 1, 2, 3. Now, if I said display x, it'll say that. But what if I wanted to say display the numbers are 1, 2, 3, but I wanted it all to be on one line? Well, the nice thing is display will work as an array. So if I did this here, put a number there, and then over here spaced it, put x, I should be able to display this. And you'll see, it didn't quite work. It gave me some weird variables. And the reason for this is because it's taking the numbers r and this over here, and interestingly enough, it's using this as a string, and the string is actually an array of individual characters. If I was to show you x is equal to, or if I said y is equal to the numbers r, and hit enter, you'll see over here the numbers are as the value, and it's treating each one of these as a position. So it's actually an array of letters and spaces, and it's trying to combine in here a letter space string with a number string. It doesn't know how to do that, and so if I went back in and said display and converted this number to a string, we should be able to combine this all in one table. And we can do that by using the function num2string str of x, and that allows us to put all that into one. But you'll notice now it is numbers, and because I didn't physically space this and I didn't give actually really good formatting in this, it won't look clean. But now we can say here the numbers are 1, 2, 3. Number2 string works great, and this all works out very well. Like I said, the display function works very well with strings. It can convert an array or display the values of an array or of a variable without actually giving the label of that variable, and gives you additional information accordingly that way. Now, one other trick to note, one other thing to realize is, since you are using apostrophes in the display function to measure, to put out your values, the question is, how do you get MATLAB to display an apostrophe if the apostrophes are what you're using to characterize the text? So in this case, let's say I wanted to say the moon, or let's say the moon's gravity is 10. If I said this is ... let's just say that, and I said this, whose gravity is, you'll notice even in the text here, it's making this purple saying it's text, but as soon as you put the apostrophes here, it no longer recognizes it. It thinks it's the end of the text. However, if you put a double apostrophe, it treats that as saying, okay, no, you don't want the end of the text, you want this to be an actual apostrophe. So if you're using double apostrophe, then we can make it display the apostrophe symbol appropriately. So once you have this in place, you can kind of see how this can all be functioned appropriately. It's a very simple way of displaying and making things a little bit clearer. Display is usually a really easy way of getting results outputted, but it's also somewhat limited. In the next video, I will show you how to use the fprintf function to get more repetitive or more complex output values in MATLAB.